Hi guys, good evening everyone. In the last session, we started the discussion related to microservices architecture. In the microservices architecture, we are seeing service registry, admin server, Jipkin server, API gateway, config server, Redis server, and Kafka. Got it? So what is the purpose of service registry? Service registry is used to maintain list of services that are available in our application. What is the name of the service? What is the URL of the service? What is the status of the service? We can find out by using this service registry. Next one, we are having admin server. What is the purpose of admin server? Admin server is used to monitor and manage all the API actuators at one place. Eureka will provide the dashboard to monitor the services. Admin server also will provide the dashboard to monitor the services. And we are having Jipkin server. What is the purpose of Jipkin server? Jipkin server is used for distributed tracing. How many requests came to our API? What is the time it has taken to process the request? We can get it by using this Jipkin server. Next one, we are having API gateway. What is the purpose of API gateway? That is entry point for all the APIs that are available in our application. Then we have config server. What is the purpose of config server? It is used to externalize our APIs and API configuration properties. And we have Redis. What is the purpose of Redis? It is used for distributed cache. Instead of getting the data from the database every time, you can get it from the cache. Then we have Apache Kafka. What is the purpose of Apache Kafka? What is the purpose of Apache Kafka? Apache Kafka is a message broker. If you want to send the messages from one application to another application, then we can go for message broker. Right. Good. So we started the development of these applications also. In the last session, we created two projects, guys. I created a project for service registry that is running on the port number 8761. And I created a project for admin server running on the port number 1111. And I'm having Jipkin server. I have not developed that project. I downloaded that jar file and I have executed my jar file. Let me go here. First, let me run service registry, run as boot application. Service registry will be running on the port number 8761. Let me access that. Go to that port, localhost colon 8761. Good. Yes, Eureka dashboard we are able to access. Currently, any instances available? No instances available with Eureka. Go for admin server, run as boot application. It will run on the port number 1111. Go and access the dashboard, localhost colon 1111. Perfect. No applications are registered. Jipkin available as a jar file. Let me go to downloads folder, jar available. Okay, CMD. Now here, let me go for Java space, -jar space. Then I will go for Jipkin server .jar file. So here it will be running on the port number 9411, localhost colon 9411, localhost colon 9411. Jipkin dashboard also we are getting. Currently, any result available in the Jipkin? No application is executed. Fine. So service registry, admin server, Jipkin server is ready. Now I want to go for API development. What is the meaning of API? One REST API, that is called as one microservice. Whatever the REST API we are developing, that REST API will act as a client for Eureka server, will act as a client for admin server, will act as a client for Jipkin server also. Got it? Now, let me create the API. Guys, in order to do all this development, I have prepared one document step by step. Let me open that document. Yeah. If I go to my previous batch, 27 SBMS, that is microservices nodes is available. So in this we discussed microservices. We already know all these things, advantages, disadvantages, architecture, service registry. I have given some theoretical points also. What is a service registry? What are the services? What is API gateway? And developing the project. What is the first step? Develop service registry application, Eureka server. What are the dependencies? Eureka server dependency, web starter is optional, and dev tools. In order to represent this application as a Eureka server, what is the step? @enable Eureka server in our start class. And I configured two properties. What are the two properties? One is port number, another one Eureka client, register with Eureka. I'm giving as a false value. If service registry project port is 8761, then clients can discover service registry and will register automatically with the service registry. If service registry project running on any other port number, then we have to register clients with the service registry manually. So if here Eureka server is available, if Eureka server running on the port number 8761, our APIs can register with the service registry automatically. If you change this port number to some other value, then manually you need to register your APIs with the service registry. Are you clear? Good. Then steps to develop admin server project. What we have done to develop admin server? We added a dependency called admin server dependency, and we added one annotation, enable admin server annotation. Port number I configured as 1111. I'm able to access. How to work with the Jipkin server? Download the Jipkin server jar from the website. I got that jar. That jar I am executing. Java space hyphen jar space jar file. What is the port number per default? That is 9411. I'm able to access my Eureka dashboard, admin server dashboard. My Jipkin dashboard is also available. Notes is already available. I no need to type each and everything again. Okay, I will share these notes. Fine. Now I am going to develop one API. In order to develop that API, what all the dependencies I'm taking? Eureka discovery client, web starter. Why I am taking Eureka discovery client? My API should register with the Eureka server. My API should register with the Eureka server. That's why we are taking discovery client dependency. And I have taken web starter to develop a REST controller, dev tools to restart the server. And we have actuator. Why actuator? To monitor our application. And Slate. Here we are using Jipkin for distributed tracing. In order to perform distributed tracing, our API should have Slate dependency. Slate will communicate with the Jipkin server. That's the reason I need to add Slate dependency, Jipkin dependency. Next one, admin client dependency. What is the purpose of admin client? It will register with the admin server. Got it? Our API is going to act as a client for Eureka, client for admin server, client for Jipkin server, and I need to add Slate dependency. I need to add actuator dependency. Okay, let me start the development. I will create one simple REST API, file new Spring Starter project. What is the project number? 34. Okay, Spring Boot microservice. Let me name it as a Greet API. Let me name it as a Greet API. Click on next. Dependencies. Web starter, dev tools, web starter, dev tools, actuator, Spring Boot actuator, admin client, admin client. Earlier we created admin server. Now we are going for admin client. Then next one, Eureka client. I want to register my application with Eureka. Eureka discovery client annotation is available. Next one, Slate and Zipkin. So Slate dependency not available. Let me go for Zipkin dependency. DevTools, Zipkin, Actuator, admin client, Eureka client, web starter. Next one, anything else? Anything else that we need to use? DevTools we need to use. Okay. DevTools I think I have already selected. DevTools available, web starter, Eureka client, admin client, actuator, Zipkin, DevTools. That's it, na? Good. Click on next. Click on finish. So with this, my project is created. This is a simple greet API. This is a simple greet API. No business logic, just we need to understand microservices architecture. Go to greet API. Project is still creating. Go to pom.xml. Go to pom.xml. Here, one dependency missing, that is Slate dependency. Slate Zipkin is added, but Slate is not added. Let me go and get it from mvnrepository.com. Let me check for a dependency with a name called Slate. Spring Cloud Starter Slate. Okay, good. I got this. Take this dependency, add that in the pom.xml. Wherever Slate is available, Slate Zipkin is available, I'm adding Cloud Starter Slate dependency. That's it. What that is one extra dependency that added in the pom.xml. Good. Refresh. Now, in this project, I'm going to write one annotation to represent this application is a Eureka client application. To represent that as a Eureka client, I'm writing one annotation called enable discovery client annotation. What is the annotation? Enable discovery client annotation I'm writing. Perfect. And let me create one REST controller, new class. Keep that in a REST package. I'm creating it as greet REST controller. I will write one simple method to return a message @get mapping. Sorry, @REST controller. Right. Now, let me go for public string get greet message. Simply, it will return good evening. That's it. Map this to a get request method. @get mapping. Let me go for /greet. Okay, guys. Greet REST controller is available. I'm writing get greet message binded to greet URL. Now go to our project YML file. Properties available. Convert the properties file to YML file. Converted properties file to YML file. Here I am specifying server.port. Server.port number. I'm going to specify this port number as 8 series 8081. I'm taking the port number as 8081. And let me specify spring.application.name. So what is the name of our API? It is greet API. I'm taking the name as a greet API. I want to enable all the actuator endpoints. I want to enable all the actuator endpoints. How to do that? management.endpoint.web.expose.include all. I want to expose all the actuator endpoints. I'm giving star. You see server port number 8081. I have given name for the application and I have given actuator endpoints. My application is having @enable discovery client annotation. What is the purpose of this annotation? It is used to represent our application is acting as a client for Eureka server. It will auto register with the Eureka server Because Eureka server port number 8761, and I need, this will auto register now. There is no problem with that. But what about admin server? I need to tell where is admin server available. So let me tell that boot admin dot client.url. So what is our admin server URL? http://localhost:1111. What is the URL of our admin server? Admin server running on the port number 1111. See here, whatever the implementation I have done, it is already part of the nodes. Create the boot application with these dependencies, then configure this annotation at the start class to represent our application as a Eureka client application. Create a REST controller with required methods, then configure below properties: server port number, application name, admin URL. Then if Eureka server port number is not 8761, then you need to configure like this. You need to give Eureka server URL. But in this scenario, do I need to give this URL? Do I need to write this property or not required? Not required. Why it is not required? Port number is 8761. If it is different, then you need to configure this property to register our application with the Eureka server. Getting my point? What is the purpose of this one? I want to expose actuators in my API. Then finally run the application and check the application. Run the application and check the application. Good. Observe once again. I created Greet API. In that Greet API, if you observe the dependencies, I have added actuator dependency, and I have added web starter. I have added admin client dependency. Manually, I added Slath dependency, and I added Jipkin dependency, and I added Eureka client dependency and DevTools available. After doing all these things, I have used one annotation, enable discovery client annotation. What is the purpose of enable discovery client annotation? What is the use of that, guys? Come on, what is the use of that? It is used to represent our API will act as a client for the Eureka server. Okay, if it is 8761, automatically it will detect Eureka. If it is not 8761, you need to configure this property with that port number. Currently, this is not required for us. Okay, good. Then after, I created one REST controller. In the REST controller, I have added one method, get request method, and I have YML. You can configure any port number. You can configure any name for your application. Whatever the name you configure, same thing will display in the Eureka dashboard. So whatever the name you configure, same thing will display in the Eureka dashboard. If you don't configure the name, it will display here as unknown name, no name available. Every API should have its unique name, right? I'm configuring name for that. What is the purpose of this property? It is used to tell admin server available in that URL, go and register with that admin server. And what is the purpose of this property? What is the purpose of this property? It is used to expose actuators of our application. Got my point? Yes, let's try now. Refresh. First, Maven update the project. Refresh our API. Refresh the API. Okay. Service registry, run it. First I am running service registry. Observe. Clear. Okay. Refresh. Eureka started. Any instance available with Eureka? No, not available. Then go for admin server, run as boot application. In the same system, two applications are running, nothing but two servers are running, nothing but two JVMs are running. In one machine, can I run multiple JVMs? No. Yes, you can run it. If you run Java program in multiple command prompts, multiple JVMs will start. Right. So fine, go here, go to admin server. Admin server also running. Jipkin is already running. Check it. Eureka running. Dashboard is displayed. No instances are available. Go for admin server running. No applications are available. Jipkin server running. No traces are available. Now let me run my API. This is our actual microservice. Remember once again, guys, confusing concept, but very important concept. I developed first microservice now. What is the meaning of microservice here? One small REST API. It contains only one REST controller. That contains only one GET request method. My REST API is called as a microservice. That REST API is acting as a client for Eureka, acting as a client for admin server, acting as a client for Jipkin server also. Good, fine. Let me start that. Right click, run as boot application. Greet API, I have given port number as 8081. My Greet API started. Go to browser, refresh Eureka. Can you see that? What is displaying in the Eureka now? Greet API is displaying. What is the status of the Greet API? Up. What is this one? It is running in one server. Greet API running in one server. This is the URL of the Greet API. So if I have 10 APIs in my project, 10 APIs list will be available in the service registry. I have a question. Am I registering Greet API with the service registry or it automatically registered? Automatically it registered. Why it registered automatically? Port number is 8761. Port number is 8761. If suppose port number is not 8761, we should write one property in the YML. We need to tell where is the Eureka server. Then it will go and register with the Eureka. In this scenario, Eureka server, my API, both are running in the same machine. And Eureka port number 8761. Client registered with the Eureka. If Eureka is in the different server, in the different machine and different port number, manually we need to register that. To register that manually, we should write this property. Are you getting my point? Yes. In our project, I'm not writing that property because it is not required now. I will show you by changing the port number also. Good. Eureka is running. My Greet API registered with the Eureka. Now go to admin server. Earlier, it was saying that 0 applications are registered, but currently it is saying 1 application registered. 2 minutes ago, it is registered. Okay. Now click on this banner. There is a card, guys. Click on this card and click on this card. This is the beautiful UI which is used to monitor our application actuators. How many threads are running? How many processes are running? Garbage collector. How many times garbage collector executed in that application? What is the heap memory? What is the heap memory? What is the non-heap memory? Stack memory, heap memory, metrics of the application, environment of the application, beans loaded by the application, configuration properties loaded by the application, loggers of our application. What is application log level? Our JVM information, download the thread dump, download the heap dump, mappings available in our project, cache that is available in the project. If you go for just actuator, do you have this beautiful dashboard? No. Who is providing this beautiful dashboard? Admin server providing that beautiful dashboard. Now, if I have multiple APIs in my project, now you see here a wallboard is available. 3 minutes ago, Greet API registered with the admin server. How many applications are there? If I click on this wallboard, it is giving information about our API. When our application started, how many processes are running, how many times the garbage collector started, How many threads are running? How many threads are daemon threads? How many threads are live threads? What is the non-heap memory? What is the heap memory? What are the beans loaded by our application? What are the configuration properties loaded by our application? What are the loggers of the application? What is the JVM details? Okay, heap details, thread details, mappings, everything we can monitor by using this application. By using this admin server, we are able to monitor and manage our application. In the real time, they will ask a question. Can I change log level of our project without restarting the server? Generally, for the project, log level will be right. So we discussed in the project classes, what is logging, what is log level, what is the default log level in the Spring Boot info. Suppose I want to change that log level. How you will do that? Logging.level.root is equal to debug. You will modify the YML file. If you modify the YML, will it reflect automatically? No, you need to restart the server. But in the real time, my project is running in the production. End users are accessing my project. I want to change the log level, but I don't want to restart my server. Very famous interview question. How to change log level without restarting the server? This is the solution. You go to loggers. What is the level available? Info. I want to change it to debug. Changed. Changed. What is the log level of our project now? So am I restarting my server or I'm not restarting my server? So this is called managing the project. Who is providing the dashboard to manage our project? Admin server is providing that facility. Tell me, what is the purpose of admin server? Come on, fast. Admin server is used to monitor and manage our application. Already actuators available to monitor and manage our application. Why to go for admin server? UI. With the UI, you can monitor multiple applications at one place. Suppose if I have 10 APIs, we have 10 different URLs. I want to get the health of the application. Go to browser, hit the URL, get the help. Go to second project URL, hit in the browser. Third project URL, hit in the browser. If I have 30 projects, 30 different URLs I have to hit. But here, beautiful user interface is available to get actuator endpoints of all your applications. So that is the purpose of admin server. Are you clear? Now go to Zipkin. In the Zipkin, any data available currently? No data available currently? No data available currently. Let me do one thing. Localhost colon 8081/greet. Am I able to access my REST API? Am I able to access my REST API? Yes. Go to Zipkin, run the query. See the entry there? What it is saying? 6 milliseconds it has taken to process my request. Are you getting my point? Earlier, when I execute this, I don't have any result. Earlier, when I click on the button, I don't have any result. After sending the request to my API, if I go to Zipkin dashboard, it is telling that, boss, you sent one request received to Greet API. It has taken 6.94 milliseconds to process that request. Can I send one more request? Can I send one more request for the Greet API? Currently, how many requests sent for Greet API? Only one request sent. Now go to this URL, browser, paste it. How many requests I have sent? 2 times I accessed Greet API. Go to Zipkin, run that. How many entries are available? 2 entries available. So this request took how much time? Only 1 millisecond it has taken to process that. Let me send you a third request. Go to Zipkin. 1 minute. Go to run query. Third entry is available or not? How much time it has taken to process now? 1.64 milliseconds of time it is taking to process our request. What is this? Distributed tracing. How many requests are coming to our REST API? how much time our API is taking to process that request. When that request came, what date, what time that request came, how much time it has taken to process that request, we can understand. If you click on show, very clearly it is giving the details. So greet API / greet is the URL pattern, span ID, one unique ID for our request, right? Start time, server start time, 6.49 milliseconds it has taken. In this project, greet controller is available. In that get greet message is the method. It is binded to get request. It is having /greet URL. Complete information about the request we are getting by using Zipkin. Tell me, what is the purpose of Zipkin? Zipkin is used for distributed tracing. Is it used for log monitoring or distributed tracing? Log monitoring is different. Distributed tracing is different. In the distributed tracing, we are getting how many requests came to our API, when the request came, to which URL pattern that request came, and how much time it has taken to process that request. How much time it has taken to process that request, that complete information we are able to get by using this Zipkin server. Eureka server is available, admin server is available, and Zipkin server is available. What is the purpose of Eureka? Come on guys, what is the purpose of Eureka? To maintain list of the APIs available in our project, name of the API, status of the API, URL of the API will be maintained by Eureka server. And next one, we are having admin server. What is the purpose of admin server? Admin server, which is used to monitor and manage all the APIs at one place. For every API, actuators will be available. All the actuators I want to access at one place. For that, I will go for admin server. What is a Zipkin server? What is a Zipkin server? It is used for distributed tracing. That means how many requests are coming to our microservices, when that request came, how much time it has taken to process, and one more thing is how many services executed to process one request. That information also we will get. As of now, I am having only one API. Now I will establish one more API and communication between one API to another API. If you send a request for one API, it will access another API, inter-service communication. When I go for inter-service communication, how many APIs involved in the request to processing we can get by using Zipkin dashboard. So these all are the some kind of tools that are used to monitor microservices of our project. What is microservices? One microservice is nothing but one REST API. Collection of REST APIs is called as microservices project. What is the meaning of microservices project? A project which contains a collection of REST APIs which can be deployed independently. Every REST API independent. Now, I developed one API. I tested my API. It is completed. Faster development, quick releases also can be done. Now I will go for second API. First API completed. Now I will go for second API. So if you see in the same process, but one extra thing is whatever the second API I am going to develop, that API I will access from first API. That is called inter-service communication. Communications are two types, guys. One is external service communication. Another one is inter-service communication. External service communication means my project will communicate with other company project. That is called third-party communication. My project will communicate with the third-party project. Inter-service communication means in my project, two REST APIs will be available. Both REST APIs will register with the service registry. One REST API will communicate with the another REST API. To establish that communication, I'm going to use a concept called PN client. What is that? PN client. What is the purpose of PN client? What is the purpose of PN client? Come on. That is used to establish inter-service communication from one API to another API with the help of service registry. Now you will see the real power of the service registry with the PN client. Service registry not only for maintaining the list, it will perform some other activities also. Let's understand that. Look at the diagram. Now you got the clarity. What is service registry? What is admin server? What is Jipkin server? And what is API? Got it? What is API? Come on, what is API? API means one REST API. We can call it as a one microservice. All right. Now let me develop another API. I will call it as a welcome API. Okay. Or else API 1 to API 2 or API 2 to API 1. Any communication we can do that. Now let me create one more project. Online people, are you getting my point? Online students, how to stop Jipkin? Control C. If you want to start the Jipkin, if you go here and press Control C, Jipkin will stop. Okay, it's a command prompt. Guys, able to understand or it is difficult to understand? Difficult, huh? Microservices architecture. So many projects we are running in the same machine, and there is a relation from one project to another project. Microservices. Important. Theory is yeah. Theory easy. What about practicals? Are you able to create these 3 projects yesterday? Running? Okay. Good. Let me go for my second API now. Good. Let me stop all these things. Okay. File, new, observe carefully. File, new project. I'm going for 35. Welcome API, something like this. Who is attending interview tomorrow? Prasad is smiling. Prasad, will you attend tomorrow? నేనంటే నువ్వు చేయలేవా? Why? Okay, tomorrow we'll take entry for Prasad. Good. Yeah, fine guys. I want to create one more API. Okay. Spring Boot microservice, welcome API I'm creating. Click on next. Dependency, web starter, actuator, dev tools. First one, Eureka client. This should also register with the Eureka server. I'm making it as a Eureka client. It should register with admin server. Let me go for admin client. It should register with Jipkin. Let me go for Jipkin. Slate dependency not coming here. Outside we need to get it, guys. I don't know why it is not coming here. Slate. Okay, leave it. One more important thing is I'm going to add one new dependency here that is called PN client, guys. What is the dependency? PN client. PN client is used for what? What is the purpose of PN client, guys? PN client is used to establish inter-service communication. What is the meaning of inter-service communication? One REST API will communicate with another REST API. Okay. Anybody feeling that I'm going speed? No? What? Are you feeling that I'm going speed? Yes, sir. Average. Spring Boot microservice. If you don't understand in my class, you will not understand in any other institute. Huh? Sorry, man. If you don't understand Spring Boot microservice in my class, you can't understand anywhere outside also. Remember that. Open PN dependency I'm taking, right? DevTools, Zipkin, Actuator, Admin Client, Discovery Client, Open PN, Web Starter. What is this? Zipkin. Why we need Zipkin dependency? It is our application should connect with the Zipkin server. For that we are adding Zipkin dependency. Why we are adding Actuator? To expose the actuator endpoints. Why admin client dependency? To register with the admin server, to connect with the admin server. Why discovery client dependency? To register with the Eureka server. What is OpenPN? What is OpenPN? It is used for inter-service communication. Web starter to develop a REST controller. Okay. From previous API and this API, difference is OpenPN dependency. This is used for inter-service communication. Okay, next, finish. A new project is getting created, 35 application. Same process. Go and add Slate dependency here. Go to pom.xml. Actuator, web starter, start admin client, Slate Zipkin. Let me get that one. mvnrepository.com. Slate. Okay. Cloud starter Slate. Copy. Yes, added that. After this, I need to first represent this as a Eureka client. How to represent as a Eureka client? First, let me go for enable discovery client so that it will auto register with the Eureka server. Next, go to YML, convert properties file to YML file. I will configure port number 9091. Server.port 9091. Okay. Application name. How to configure? Spring dot application dot name. I'm giving it as welcome API. Welcome API. I want to register with admin server. Okay. Admin.client.url. Spring.boot.admin.client.url. What is the URL? http://localhost:1111. Next one. Enable actuators. How to enable actuators? Management dot endpoint dot web dot management dot endpoint dot web dot exposure dot include. I want to go for all star. All the actuator endpoints will be exposed. Right. Let me create one simple REST controller for our response. New class dot REST. Let me keep it as welcome REST controller. Okay. Get welcome message. Map it to get request @get mapping / welcome. Return welcome message. Perfect. We are done with two APIs. Currently, inter-service communication is not available. There are two independent APIs are available. Okay. Let me run these things first and let me show you that. Maven update, because we change it from properties file to YML. Sorry. Maven update. Refresh. Yeah. First, let me run service registry. Yeah. Guys, I have started my Eureka server. Remove all these things. Eureka. Currently, any instance available with Eureka? No, no instances are available with Eureka. Start admin server. Starting my admin server. Go here. Refresh. Any applications available? No, applications are not available. Jipkin already running. It is previous one only. So you can see duration 18 minutes ago, 17 minutes ago, 17 minutes ago. These are the previous requests I have sent to my API. Now let me run my greet API. Refresh, run as boot application. Running as boot application. My greet API started. Check it, Eureka, refresh, registered with Eureka. Greet API registered with Eureka or not? Greet API registered with the Eureka. Now go to admin server. Registered with admin server? Yes, available. Let me run welcome API also. First time I'm running this. Run as boot application. I'm running welcome API. Okay, go to Eureka, refresh. Can you check it? Two applications are available. Greet API running with port number 8081. Welcome API running with the port number 9091. Go to admin server. Greet API registered almost 1 minute ago. It registered just 20 seconds ago. Greet API available. Welcome API available. Can I monitor these two applications from admin server now? Yes, go to this banner, click on it, click on this banner. Now you will get all the information related to welcome API. Go to wallboard. How many APIs available in the admin server? Two APIs are available. One is a greet API, another one is welcome API. If you click on this wall, greet API dashboard will come. And if you go to this wallboard, click on this API details will come. Okay, go to Jipkin, only previous search traces, restarted our application. So that searches are removed from there. Now let me access localhost colon 8081/greet. I'm able to access good evening message. Similarly, localhost colon 9091/welcome. Welcome to Ashok IT and good evening. Go to Jipkin, run the query. Now, can you check it? Can you check it? Come on, guys. So here, greet API. First time I have given a error. Localhost, just I have given up to 8081. I did not give the URL pattern. I got one error. Then I accessed greet API. Then I accessed my welcome API. See here, this sorting is also available. First I sent request for this. That was a error. It took 21 milliseconds to process. Then I accessed greet API. It processed in 2 milliseconds. Then I accessed welcome API. It processed in the 6 milliseconds. Again access greet API. Go to Jipkin. Now again I access greet API. Now access welcome API. Go to Jipkin. It is giving one more entry. Are you clear with this? So we are able to access. Now you see when I expand, greet API executed. welcome API executed, greet API executed, welcome API executed. You can filter the data also. Guys, page refreshing or page not refreshing? What is the meaning of that? Ajax calls are happening. Drop down is available. In the drop down, all the APIs list is coming. You need to think like a developer. So when I select this drop down, two options are coming. Nothing but two APIs registered with the Jipkin server. If I select Greet API data is coming. If I select Welcome API data is coming. Where we have implemented this? In the second project, view inquiries. If I select the course name, based on that course table will update. If I select a status, based on that it will update. You see here, I selected Greet API. Can I select one more value? Yes or no? So now two values I'm selecting service filters. If I remove one filter, then all the details are coming. If I select it, that filter data is coming for us, right? So wherever you go, filtering the data based on the search operation is very common requirement. Without reloading the page, they are filtering the table data. And here, run query. So if you click on plus, service name is equal to Greet API. And if I click on run query, page refreshing. When I click on this button, then page refreshing. There is a small jerk on the web page. What is the meaning of that? Page is refreshing. Synchronous request. Where we implemented? First project. In the first mini project we implemented, when I select the data and click on the button, search results will come with a synchronous request. In the drop down, if I select, without reloading the page, our data is getting refreshed. Got it? In the first project, second project, we implemented these scenarios. Fine. Now, my APIs are running as expected, guys. Both APIs are running as expected. Now, let me do. Here, API 1 and API 2 is available. Okay. Let me give the numbering port numbers. In which port number it is running, guys? Eureka running on which port number? 8761. Admin server running on port is equal to 1111. What about Jipkin? Jipkin is running on the port number 9411. Jipkin is also a Spring Boot application, guys. It is ready-made application. API 1, let me consider this as a welcome API. It is running on the port number 9091. API 1 I am considering as a welcome API running on the port number 9091. API 2 I am considering as a Greet API. It is running on the port number 8081. Now tell me, total how many projects running in my system? Total how many projects running in my system? 5 projects are running. One is Eureka project, Eureka server. Second one is admin server. Third one is Jipkin server, API 1, API 2. API 1 I am considering as a welcome API. API 2 I am considering as a Greet API. So total 5 projects are running, 5 servers are running, 5 JVMs are running in my system. 5 JVMs are running in my system. Let me check my system performance, CPU utilization. Currently, CPU utilization is increasing or not? So it is fluctuating. CPU utilization fluctuating. Why CPU utilization fluctuating? Because more processes are running in my computer. So Eureka server is running, admin server is running, Jipkin server is running, my Greet API running, my welcome API is running. Perfect. Now I want to establish communication from one API to another API. Earlier, we have already implemented that logic, guys. How we implemented that logic? By using REST template and web client. We know the syntax for REST template and web client. But now we are going to communicate by using what? You can do that by using REST template and web client also. Let's observe. This is my welcome API. In the welcome API, can I create one object for REST template? RT is equal to new REST template, RT dot get for entity, RT dot get for entity, URL, response will come as a string dot class. Response will come as what? String dot class. Perfect. Let me store this response, not string. It is going to give us what is the URL here, http://localhost:8081/greet. Okay, so this method will return response entity object. Okay guys, this method will return response entity object. Then what I will do from that? For entity dot get body. What is this body will represent? This is greet response. This is greet response. Return greet response plus my response. Okay guys, what I am doing in this method, can you check the logic now? What I am doing in this method, can you check the logic now? In the welcome REST controller, what is the logic available? Come on guys, think about it. Whenever request comes to welcome REST controller, it is accessing greet API. Whenever a request comes to the welcome API, it is accessing greet API. Whatever the response we are getting from the greet API, it is combining with the welcome API response and it is returning final response. It is returning final response. So can I say here, one API is accessing another API? Can I say one API accessing another API or not? Can we test that? Can we test that? Come on. Run as boot app service registry, run as boot app admin server, greet API I want to run. Let them up and running now. What is REST template? What is REST template, guys? Come on, guys. What is REST template? It is used to establish communication from one API to another API. Perfect. Go to greet API, run it. Welcome API, run it. Perfect. Yeah, all the 5 projects are running. Now, see here, Eureka. In the Eureka, what is there? Greet API is available and Welcome API is also available. Admin server, 2 applications are registered 20 seconds ago, just now. Jipkin server. Okay, good. Let me go here and access those APIs. Localhost colon 8081/greet. Then what is the response I'm getting? That means which API I'm accessing? Greet API I am accessing. Now I want to access welcome API. What is the port number? 9091. Okay. When I go for this 9091, request will go to welcome API. What is the logic in the welcome API? What is the logic in the welcome API? Request will come to welcome REST controller. What I am doing in the welcome REST controller? REST template. What is the purpose of REST template? What is the purpose of REST template? It is used to send HTTP request programmatically. Okay. It is trying to access greet API. Whatever the response is coming from the greet API, it is combining greet API response to welcome API response and it is going to return final response. Okay. Localhost colon 9091/welcome. What happened now? So one API is able to communicate with another API. Yes, one API is able to communicate with the another API. This response is given by greet API. Combined response is given by welcome API. How one API communicating with another API? By using REST template. By using REST template. In microservices, this is not recommended because here I am hard coding the URL of the Greet API. Tomorrow, if Greet API URL changed, tomorrow that URL can be changed, right? Tomorrow, if a Greet API URL changed, then my welcome API will not work. My welcome API will not work if I change the URL for the Greet API. For example, due to some reasons, Greet API getting so many requests. Due to some business scenario, Greet API getting so many requests. I will run Greet API in 3 servers. Are you getting my point? I will run Greet API in 3 servers. If I run in 3 servers, what my REST controller doing? Always sending the request to only one URL. So tomorrow I will discuss about load balancing. So when I go for load balancing, my REST API will run in multiple servers. My REST API will run in multiple servers. When I run in multiple servers, multiple URLs will be available. But what our API doing? Always communicating with the same URL. That is a problem. So that's why this code is not recommended. This code is not recommended. What I need to do? PN client I have to use. Earlier we used REST template and we use web client to establish the communication from one API to another API. But now I should not go for the REST template. I need to go for PN client. Why PN client? Inter-service communication. What is the meaning of inter-service communication? What is the meaning of inter-service communication? One API communicating with the another API without URL. Okay guys, without URL, one API will communicate with the another API. Guys, today I will just write the code and I will show the output. Explanation I will do it tomorrow because I have a meeting at 7 o'clock. Okay, if I start the explanation, it will take another 20 to 30 minutes of time. I will just write the PN client program. I will show the output. I will give the clarity in the tomorrow's class for that. Okay, I'm removing this REST template. I'm removing REST template here. I'm removing the REST template. Why I'm removing REST template? In the REST template, I need to hard code the URL. What is the problem if I hard code the URL? Tomorrow URL can change. Same API can have multiple URLs tomorrow. So I should not hard code the URL. For that, I will go for a concept called PN client concept, guys. I will go for a concept called PN client concept. Let me create it. New class. This is PN. Greet PN client. This should be a interface. Okay, I'm creating one interface. In this interface, I will write one annotation called PN client annotation. Annotation name. This is client to access another API. Which API you want to access? Greet API I want to access. Go to service registry. What is the name of the Greet API? Greet-API. That's it. We no need to give the URL. We don't need to give the URL. I'm just giving the name of the API. Okay. What request I need to send for Greet API? What is there in the Greet controller? Let me go for Greet REST controller. What is there in Greet REST controller? There is a get request method available. Get request method / greet is the URL pattern. Now, public string invoke Greet API. Okay. I no need to send any data. Just I need to send a get request, get mapping / greet. Okay, guys, just 2 lines of code, but so many things will happen internally. Now, when I call this method, is it a concrete method or is it an abstract method? It is a concrete method or abstract method? It is a abstract method. That means there is no body. Here, when I call this method, this PN client will take the service name and it will go to service registry. Hey, service registry, I have the name of the API. Can you give me the URL of the API? It is going to talk to service registry. So here, for the PN client, I'm giving greet API URL. I'm giving greet API name. I'm giving the URL or I'm giving the name. I'm giving the name. Okay. When I call this method, observe carefully. Focus guys. Very, very, very important. When I call this method, my PN client will go to service registry by taking the service name. Hey, service registry, I want the URL for this API whose name is greet API. Then service registry, yeah, right guys. So here I'm having PN client. I'm having a PN client. So in the PN client, I'm writing a method. When I call this method, PN client is intelligent. PN client knows that I have given the service name, not the URL. Why I am not giving the URL? URLs may change in the future. And there can be multiple URLs for one application. One application can run in multiple servers. That's why I'm giving service name. When I give the service name, PN client will talk to service registry. Hey, service registry, what is the URL for the greet API? Service registry will give the URL to the PN client. Then PN client will talk to greet API by sending get request with /greet as the URL pattern. So many things will happen internally. Tomorrow you will get that clarity. Okay. Now I created one interface. Okay. For this interface, you no need to write any implementation also. Just to go for private greet PN client, inject it. Greet PN client, that is greet client. Let's go for auto wiring. What I have done now? Come on, what I have done? I have created one PN client. That PN client I injected in the welcome REST controller. Now, using this PN client, I will call the method invoke. What is the method, guys? Invoke greet API. It will give me greet response. Now, greet response plus welcome API response. What is the difference between previous logic and this logic? Come on, what is the difference between previous logic and this logic? In the previous logic, I have used REST template. What is the problem with the REST template? Hard-coded URL. You need to fix the URL in order to access the API. You need to fix the URL in order to access the API. What is the problem if I fix the URL? Tomorrow, URL can change and one application can have multiple URLs. Okay. In that scenario, our logic will not work. That's why REST template not recommended here. To overcome that problem, I'm going for PN client. For the PN client, am I giving service URL? I'm giving service name. I'm giving service name and I have a method. What is this method telling that? This method telling that it should send a get request to /greet URL available in the greet API. What is this greet API? Name of the service. What is the URL of the service? Service registry knows that. Who knows the URL of the greet API? Service registry. Now, in the welcome REST controller, I'm calling PN client dot method. Does this PN client having anything or PN client don't have anything? Don't have anything. Implementation will be provided in the runtime by using proxy design pattern. We have seen data JPA. In the data JPA, we created interface. Are we providing implementation? No. Similarly, whenever we create PN client interface, implementation will be provided by Spring Cloud in the runtime. For this PN client, implementation will be provided in the runtime. What will be there in that implementation? Whenever we call this method, it should talk to service registry based on the service name, get the service URL, send a request to greet API, that to get request with the /greet URL. That greet API will return string message as a response. You store that response into this variable. That's it. This is used to send the get request to the greet API. Who is sending that request? PN client is going to send that request. Are you guys clear? Good. Fine. Let me run this. Guys, microservice is very interesting concept. If you focus. Go to Eureka, check it. But the problem is several times starting the applications. That is the problem. Eureka, Greet API currently registered. Welcome API is not yet registered. Welcome API terminated. Okay. Is it part of the base package, na? Part of the base package. Automatically hona chahiye. Okay, okay, guys. Yeah. When you want to go for PN clients, na, one annotation is required. That is enable PN clients. I forgot this annotation. We need to write one annotation that is called enable PN clients. Okay. Let me run this again. Run as boot app. Yeah, it's running. Go to Eureka, refresh. Yes. Two applications are registered with Eureka. Yes or no? Greet API and Welcome API registered. Admin server, two APIs are registered. Zipkin is available. Okay. Let me send the request only for Greet API. When I send request for only Greet API, what is happening? I'm getting the response as a good evening. Now, let me send the request for Welcome API. If I send the request for Welcome API, what is the expectation? What is the expectation? Come on. Request will go to Welcome REST controller. What is this Welcome REST controller doing? PN client. What is this PN client will do? Access the Greet API. Does PN client know the URL of the Greet API? PN client don't know the URL of the Greet API. PN client don't know the URL of the Greet API. Guys, 1 minute. Yeah, hello. నేను కాల్ చేశాను చెప్పండి ఎంత క్లాస్లో ఉంటుంది మరి ఆఫీస్ రావచ్చు కదా ఆఫీస్ మా స్టాఫ్ ఉన్నారు కదా ఇక్కడే అందరూ ఓకే సరే సరే all right guys now so whenever we send a request for welcome API see the response what is the response we are getting I'm getting the response from greet API plus welcome API how welcome API communicated with the greet API how welcome API communicated with the greet API by using PN client are you clear what is the purpose of PN client which is used to establish inter-service communication. Am I writing the URL or I'm not writing the URL? I'm not writing the any URL for that. Clear, guys? Good. So with this, I'm stopping for today. We'll continue in the tomorrow session, guys.